What's up, everyone? Happy Football Friday, a sunny Milwaukee day today. Um, just me, so should go relatively quickly. I say relatively when we got our season previews going on. Doing AFC North today, so we'll get to that after some USFL talk and a couple things going on in NFL news space wise, but not much. So let's get it started here with the college football news. One transfer portal player to note: Marshall wide receiver Corey Gamage has flipped his decision from Purdue to UCF. So big get for UCF. Gamage, an electric receiver for the Thundering Herd there. Matt Marshall, and gonna, I think, probably explode with UCF's high-powered offensive scheme that they like to run down there. So, yeah, great get for UCF. Moving on to the USFL news, we got the all USFL teams this week. On offense, Stallions quarterback Alex Magoo, Gamblers running back Mark Thompson, Breakers running back Wes Hills, Stars wide receiver Corey Coleman, Gamblers wide receiver Justin Hall, Stallions tight end Jay Sternberger, Showboats offensive tackle Jaron Jones, Gamblers offensive tackle Avery Genesee, Generals guard Calvin Ashley, Breakers guard Paul Adams, and Generals center Jake Lucina, all well worthy of their selections. Alex Magoo leading the league in total touchdowns. Mark Thompson leading the league in rushing touchdowns. West Hills, I believe, led the league in rushing yards. Yes. So, yeah, Magoo, 25 total touchdowns for him, just 7 turnovers on the year, 5 picks, 2 fumbles. West Hills, like I mentioned, 680 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns on the season. Mark Thompson, second in the league in rushing, 655, 14 rushing touchdowns for him. Corey Coleman for the Stars led the league in receiving yards, 51 receptions, 668 yards, 4 touchdown receptions for him. You had Justin Hall. He was third in the league in receiving, 47 receptions, 513 yards, 4 touchdowns. And Stallions tight end Jay Sternberger, he finished second in tight end receiving yards, 33 receptions, 517 yards, but led the league in receiving touchdowns with 7 in 10 games, which was kind of crazy. So his yardage put him fourth overall in the league. Justin Hall actually, they're finishing fifth in receiving yards total. So maybe Justin Hall wasn't worthy of that wide receiver spot because Davion Davis finished ahead of him in yards, but 8 fewer catches, 39 receptions, 575 yards, 4 touchdowns also for Davion Davis of the Stallions. Maybe they just didn't want to put another Stallions player on there. Who knows? But Justin Hall, you can argue that he is worthy of that selection there. Jaron Jones, though, 2-time All USFL back-to-back years, one of 2 players, him and Generals defensive tackle Toby Johnson, leading that defense there. So let's get to the defense. Panthers defensive end Breland Speaks, Stars defensive end Adam Rodriguez, Showboats defensive tackle John Atkins, Generals defensive tackle Toby Johnson, like I mentioned. Panthers linebacker Frank Ginda, Maulers linebacker Chiava Tizzino, Generals linebacker Chris Orr, Maulers corner Mark Gilbert, Generals corner DJ Daniel, Maulers safety Arnold Tarpley III, and Gamblers safety Manny Bunch. All well deserving of their selections, I think, anyways. Breland Speaks, He led the league in sacks, 9 sacks in 10 games. Pretty crazy stats there to go along with 54 tackles, 6 tackles for loss. And Adam Rodriguez was right up there with him in terms of sacks. If I can find it. There you go. 6 sacks. So he finished third, I believe, third or fourth in sacks. But defensive end wise, he was second with 6 because Keontae Shad, who was probably the biggest miss on this one, maybe Hercules Mataafa as well, who also finished with 6 sacks. But Keontae Shad, 7.5 sacks from the defensive tackle spot. Excellent season for him with the New Orleans Breakers there. 9 tackles for loss as well. Didn't have a lot of other stats, though, just tackles, sacks, and tackles for loss. But the 2 defensive tackles that got selected were excellent. John Atkins, he had that crazy 5 pass deflection game, finished with 29 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 7 pass deflections, like I mentioned, 5 in one game there. And then Toby Johnson was just a force for New Jersey all year in the middle of their line. Really tough to run on Johnson. Really, a lot of the times, the only time teams were able to run against New Jersey was when he was out of the game. 35 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and a pass deflection there for Johnson. Frank Ginda, he led the league in tackles, so I don't have the solos and assists separated out on my chart. But 106 total tackles for Frank Ginda, led the league easily by 19, actually, or by 13 tackles there over Chiava Tizino. But Frank Ginda padded the stat sheet: 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, 3 picks, 5 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles as well. Chiava Tizino did the same thing: 93 total tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 2 picks, 6 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and a touchdown. And Chris Orr for the Generals, also very good. Maybe not as good, though. 71 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 1 fumble recovery. I think you could make the case for Gamblers linebacker Kalen Tolson, who finished third in tackles with 79, 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, pass deflection, and a forced fumble. Other than that, Vontae Diggs, definitely, I thought he got snubbed. 67 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 3 picks, 6 pass deflections, and a pick 6 on his record. He was really the biggest one, I think, that got snubbed at the linebacker position. JT Tyler was also very good for Houston: 58 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1 pick, 6 pass deflections. Another guy that put up some big numbers there. As far as the corners, Mark Gilbert led the league in interceptions with 4, I believe. 33 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 4 picks, 14 pass deflections, easily the most. Crazy number that he put up, but he also had, I believe, a 5 pass deflection game. And he just continued to bat the ball away, break it up from everyone around him. And then DJ Daniel for the Generals. He was one that maybe is the spot that you could have put someone else possibly. 26 tackles, 2 picks, 4 pass deflections. Corner is a tough one. Jermaine Kelly had better stats than that. 2 picks, 5 pass deflections. But, corner is one where it's tough. You have to play every down excellently. Deion Lake had 7 pass deflections. He's a safety, though, I believe. And Jerry Elder, he's a safety also, which I'll make that kind of comparison or case for Jerry Elder. 52 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 2 picks, 6 pass deflections, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery. But, other than that, Troy Warner was 4th in the league in tackles, 73. Didn't have the interceptions to go with it, nor the pass deflections. He was a kind of a box safety, though. So, really, there wasn't much debate there at the other corner spots. Safety, Arnold Tarpley, Manny Bunch, excellent duo there. Manny Bunch, 60 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 1 pick, 4 pass deflections, and a forced fumble. Tarpley, 44 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3 picks, 8 pass deflections. Very deserving, both guys there. Sucks that Bunch got injured, wasn't able to play. I believe the last game was the last game or the last 2. The last game, week 10, wouldn't have been available, I don't think, for if the Gamblers would have won and gotten in to the South Division Championship. But I'm going to make a case for another guy at safety. I already kind of did it with Jerry Elder, but Cody Brown for the Stars was awesome all year. 63 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 6 pass deflections, and a forced fumble. So he didn't get the turnovers with the fumble recoveries, nor the picks, didn't have one. But he was awesome all year for Philly and, finished 10th in tackles. So I don't know. I thought Cody Brown maybe over a guy like Arnold Tarpley possibly, but it's a pick your poison kind of thing, and there's only a couple spots. So special teams, Stallions punter Colby Wadman, Stars kicker Luis Aguilar, Stallions long snapper Ryan Langan, Maulers punt returner Isaiah Henney, Maulers kick returner Josh Simmons, and Showboat special teamer Vinny Papali. Wadman was excellent. He easily outpaced the whole field in punt average. 27 punts, 48.7 average. That's 1.9 yards over the next closest one, which was the Gamblers' Hunter Nieswander. 65 for a long. Not as long as some other guys. Some other guys had some crazy long punts. Brandon Wright for the Showboats, 76-yarder, a 78-yarder from Brock Miller and the Generals, and then an 83-yarder from Mauler's punter Matt Mangle. Those were the only 3 that beat him. Or actually, no, 68-yarder from Matt White with the Breakers as well. So the long punt, that doesn't really mean much. It's the average consistency basis. And like I said, he easily outpaced the field there. Luis Aguilar was fantastic. 25 of 29 field goals, 86.2%, 56 long, 19 of 20 extra points, 95%. Did get 2 blocks, though, field goals and extra points combined. I thought that Matt Coughlin should have won the kicker, should have gotten the kicker spot, because when you look at him, while he had 10 less field goal attempts than Aguilar, he went 18 of 19, 94.7%, and he was perfect on his extra points, 25 of 25, so 5 more extra point attempts there. I'm just saying I like efficiency, and I think the kicker, the all USFL kicker, should be the most accurate kicker, with a caveat of having to kick a certain amount of field goals and certain amount of extra points. Was 19 enough? I don't know, but in a 10-game season, I think 19 was definitely enough field goals. I mean, Nick Skiba for the Generals only kicked 13, but he made 12. So, yeah, I think I'm not sure about Luis Aguilar. I know he had that crazy 8-for-8 game that tied the pro football record, but I like efficiency more, and Matt Coughlin was your guy there leading the league in field goal efficiency, with the caveat of having kicked 13 or more field goals this season because there were 2 other kickers that kicked field goals. Brandon Wright, the punter for the Showboats, kicked a couple field goals in Alex Kessman's stead, but just the one game there. And then Nathan Hiralahi, who got released by Pittsburgh early, kicked 4 field goals for them. Only made 2, though. Missed his only extra point. So that's a long way to say. I think Matt Coughlin should have got that spot. Isaiah Henney for the Maulers being the punt returner. He was excellent there. He had the 1 punt return touchdown, but I believe he led the league in punt return average, and dynamic is all I can say about Isaiah Henney on offense and special teams. Josh Simmons. Now, this one is one that I don't understand too much here. Josh Simmons, he had a kick return touchdown, I believe, the last week of the season for Pittsburgh, if I'm not mistaken. But I still think I don't understand how Derek Dillon didn't make anything in this all USFL team. Now this might be me being a Memphis supporter, but at the same time, Derek Dillon was one of the most electric playmakers in this league this year. So to have him not be on the all USFL team just didn't make sense to me. No, he did not have a kick return touchdown. But yeah, Derek Dillon, I mean, he had a kick return touchdown and he had a 109-yard field goal missed touchdown as well. Short field goal touchdown. So, and to go along with that, he also finished 13th in receiving, 28 receptions, 340 yards, just the 1 receiving touchdown. But still, I think that he should have been on this list. Maybe as the special teams player. I mean, I don't know. They want guys more that are covering kicks, I guess, on the special teams units. But I think Derek Dillon deserved to be on this list somewhere anyways. He was awesome on offense and special teams. And also, the only other guy, I would say, Sage Surratt for the Breakers, 50 receptions, 552 yards, 1 touchdown. He was the only other guy, but obviously there was only 1 tight end spot, so that makes it tough. And, of course, if you're asking for a quarterback against Alex Magoo, it would have been McLeod Bethel-Thompson. Led the league in passing, 2,433 yards, 14 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Him or Case Cookus, 2,295 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 picks there. But, yeah, that is your all USFL teams. And we also got a couple USFL awards handed out. The Assistant Coach of the Year, this is the first time they've given this award out. Assistant Coach of the Year went to Maulers defensive coordinator Jaron Horton. Really, the reason why they're in the playoffs. They would not have made it, I would have to think, without Jaron Horton's defense playing excellent as they did down the stretch, and especially in that Week 10 winner-in game. So we'll see how they do this weekend. Coach of the Year, of course, Stallions head coach Skip Holtz, easily the best record for the 2nd straight year in a row. They've lost They've lost 3 games in the 2 seasons of the USFL return. So easy for Skip Holtz to win that one. Let's move on to NFL news. And first off, we're going to talk about some fashion. So let's talk about the Detroit Lions. New helmet. So here is the Detroit Lions new helmet that they will wear just once, I believe, this season, with their alternate gray uniforms. And that is the only uniform they said they were going to wear it with. So here it is, a celebration of their 90th year as a franchise. This is a 50s logo, I believe. No, 1961. 1961 is what the Lions logo is. Of course, you have the 2 stripes, the blue and white, and then the matte gray face mask as well, which will work with their gray unis. I don't know. I don't think it's that great. It kind of looks like someone just threw it on there. I mean, there you go. There's Aiden Hutchinson with it on, and with the uniform. Now I think it looks pretty good with the uniform. It matches the blue on the shoulder there. So yeah, I mean it's not the worst, but I think they might have been able to do something better with it. Who knows? See how it looks on game day whenever they wear it. Getting back to other NFL news, the Bills did some business. They signed head coach Sean McDermott and GM Brandon Beane to extensions through 2027. Gets them up to date with the current salary scale of NFL coaches and GMs, but also puts them on the same schedule in terms of contract. So again, it makes a lot of sense for Buffalo to be doing that. The league owners are going to hold a special meeting on July 20th. That is to discuss and possibly approve the Commanders' sale finally. Thus, it has been agreed upon so far, just waiting on the league approval, which I believe requires a majority vote, a supermajority vote. 3/4 of the owners need to vote yes for it to go through, and by all accounts, I believe it will go through. One injury to note: the Jets traded for former Ravens safety Chuck Clark this offseason. Well, he will not play for the Jets this year. He tore his ACL last week, is done for the year. Jets made a retroactive move, or a reactive move, I should say, and signed Adrian Amos, like we mentioned last show, I believe. So tough for Chuck Clark. Let's move on to the USFL. USFL pick standings here was not a good week. Mark, luckily for him, he went 2-2, gained a game on myself. So he's 3 games back, and there's only 3 games left. So, Mark, you got a chance, but you got to pick against me, and unfortunately, you didn't do that. Logan and I 1-3 last week. Logan got his lone wolf with the Maulers right, but he got everything else wrong. I got my lone wolf, I believe. Or no, I got the breakers right with Mark. And then Mark lost out on Logan's lone wolf. He picked the Generals in that one. And he also lost out on his lone wolf, on his lone wolf with the I cannot recall. The Stallions. The Stallions. He got that one right. So the North Division Championship. This is tomorrow. The Panthers against the Maulers. We are all on Pittsburgh. And that's because the assistant coach of the year is on their team. Jaron Horton, defensive coordinator there. I think this thing is going to be a slugfest. Not a lot of points going to be scored here. And both defenses are going to play very well. When you look at the defensive statistics for both teams, Pittsburgh second in points allowed, 17.8, 23 sacks, 9 forced fumbles, 7 fumble recoveries, and 13 picks. That leads the league. They have a block and 2 touchdowns, 2 defensive touchdowns, 1 punt, and 1 kick return touchdown. And then you have the Panthers, who have allowed the third most points, 20.9, 24 sacks on the lower end of the league. Actually, no, that is on the higher end. That's tied for third in the league in sacks. They have the most forced fumbles in the league with 12, 8 fumble recoveries, 7 picks, and 1 blocked kick and a defensive touchdown as well. So, yeah, it's both defenses are pretty good, but I do think Pittsburgh is definitely the better team overall on defense. It's just, can their offense score? E.J. Perry was miraculous in that second half against Philly last week for Michigan, but that was also a home game. This one is in Canton, I believe, where Pittsburgh plays. Just want to confirm. Yes, it is in Canton at Tom Benson Stadium there. So, yeah, being a home game for Pittsburgh, I think they're going to win this one. And not sure about the spread, 2.5. It's going to be a really close game. Probably like Michigan plus 2.5 on that if you're looking at that angle. I like the under, though. I already took the under. Unfortunately, it went up by 0.5 point now. But I took it at 38. I know that's not a lot of points. I just don't expect there to be a lot of points. Pittsburgh allowed 6 points to New Jersey last week, and they put up 26 on offense. So that's 32. And, Michigan gave up 20 and put up 23, hitting the over in that game last week. But I just don't see them putting up 20-plus points against this Pittsburgh defense. So give me the under. It's low, but that's what I'm taking in this one. 8 p.m. on NBC. I'll be trying to follow this at the Brett Eldredge concert. Well, we'll see how long this game lasts. Brett Eldredge is until 10 p.m. Central, so we'll see. And the other playoff game this weekend on Sunday night, the South Division Championship, Breakers versus the Stallions. This one is in Birmingham, a home game for the Stallions for the first time in the playoffs. Stallions, we are all over them. They have been the best team from the start, and there really isn't a team that can stop them. New Orleans is the best opportunity. They have the best defense in the league, technically, by points allowed anyways. 17.3 points per game, 28 sacks. They lead the league in sacks, 8 forced fumbles, 5 recovered, 12 picks. That's tied for second in the league, and 1 defensive touchdown as well. So I think this defense is going to be really solid, but they're going up against a juggernaut in Alex Magoo, C.J. Marable, Davion Davis, Jay Sternberger, etc. on that Stallions offense. It is going to be a bloodbath, and it's going to be very tough to stop. Stallions defense, on the other hand, I think a lot of people don't talk about them. 19 points per game allowed. That's only third in the league. So excellent defense on their side as well. One area they struggle, they're tied for second least in sacks. Just 19 on the year. 8 forced fumbles, 7 recovered, 6 picks. That's second lowest in the league. do have a defensive touchdown and 2 kick return touchdowns, both coming from Deion Kane. But I do think the Stallions are going to win this as in a close one. I think they cover the 2.5. I got it at 3. Unfortunately, that's what you get for betting early. But 2.5, 3, whatever you want to do, I think they can cover that. Again, they've been the best team all year, and I just think they will continue to be that, and they can win relatively easily by at least one score in this one. Total is 44.5. I lean under on that. I would say I lean over, but I just told you the defensive statistics. 17.3 points per game for New Orleans, 19 points per game for Birmingham. That adds up to 36.5 points per game. So under is where I lean on that angle. This one's 7 p.m. on Fox Sunday night. Let's get to the AFC North season preview here. The 4 people I have that will make or break this division this year, all on the offensive side. First off, Pittsburgh Steelers, Kenny Pickett. Can he take that leap in year 2? I believe he can. I'll talk more about that in a second. But he is the biggest key for Pittsburgh's success or lack thereof this season. The Ravens were a tough one. I was going to put Lamar Jackson, but I decided to put a newcomer instead. Odell Beckham Jr., can he rejuvenate this passing game? And is he enough for this passing game to be rejuvenated? That's the biggest thing. The Ravens need to throw the ball more and have efficiency in the passing game to be balanced and have more success than they did last season. The third picture, maybe not, some people might not know who he is, but I couldn't find a picture of him in the Bengals uniform yet. That is new Bengals left tackle Orlando Brown Jr. The Bengals offensive line has been the story for the last 2 seasons. And did they finally get it fixed with one guy at one position? I'm not sure, but I do think Orlando Brown Jr. is one of the best left tackles in the league. That's what they paid him as. And he just won the Super Bowl, so he has that championship pedigree, trying to get the Bengals to there or back there like they were 2 seasons ago. And finally, another quarterback here, Deshaun Watson, year 2, kind of like Pickett, except he's in his, I don't know what year it is for Deshaun, 6, 7 for him total in the league. But second year in Cleveland, can he finally get this Browns offense going? Will we see Deshaun with a full offseason? And, will we see the old Deshaun finally, like we saw in Houston, or not? Because if it's not, they got an issue, because they're going to be paying him a lot of money for the next 2 more years after this for him not to be the guy. So that's a big question in Cleveland as well. Let's start in Pittsburgh, though. Re-signings for them. Quarterbacks, Mitchell Trubisky and Mason Rudolph. So the quarterback room is solidified once again, 3 deep. Defensive tackle, Larry Ogunjobi. Corner, James Pierre. Safety, DeMonte KZ. And long snapper, Christian Kuntz. I think the Ogunjobi signing was a key. Needed to have that continuity on the other defensive end spot opposite Cameron Hayward. Get some veteran presence in there. Free agency. Steelers did pretty well, I thought, in free agency this year. Traded for wide receiver Allen Robinson. They signed offensive tackle Raven Clark, guard Isaac Seumalo, guard Nate Herbig, defensive tackle Braden Fajoko, edge rusher Marcus Golden, Linebackers, Elandon Roberts, Nick Kwiatkowski, Tanner Muse, Cole Holcomb. Corners, Patrick Peterson and Shannon Sullivan. Safety, Keanu Neal. And punter, Braden Mann. I loved everything the Steelers did. They hit all the areas of need. They got a third wide receiver to start with Pickens and Johnson. They got the offensive line help that they needed, quality depth in Clark, who can be a fourth tackle option. Herbig is a good swing player inside that can play all three spots. And then Seumalo is a fantastic guard that plugs into the left guard spot right away, as well as the drafting of Broderick Jones. I thought they really did a nice job of solidifying this offensive line for this season. On the defensive side, Marcus Golden, excellent pass rusher on the outside, comfortable in a 3-4 scheme. So he's going to be a guy that can interchange with Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. And then the linebackers was a big area of need, off-ball linebacker. They solidified that with all their guys that they got, along with seventh-round pick, 7th-round pick Mark Robinson comes in, completely redid the whole inside linebacker unit this year. And then Patrick Peterson gives them a veteran presence on the outside. He's long in the tooth, but going to be able to coach some of these young bucks up. Joey Porter Jr., Corey Trice, the two rookies there. And then Keanu Neal, happy to have him to go along with the re-signing of KZ there at strong safety. Braden Mann, possibly an upgrade. I think they got two young punters in Mann and Presley Harvin there. I loved Harvin coming out. Hasn't really been efficient enough. So they bring in competition for him. It'll be interesting to watch which guy wins that spot. They have Harvin as the guy right now, but not so sure he is solidified in that starting punter spot. Losses-wise, a lot of free agents, bunch of guys they just didn't re-sign yet, or I should say didn't re-sign possibly yet. Running backs, Jeremy McNichols and Benny Snell Jr., both free agents. So is fullback Derek Watt. Wide receiver Anthony Miller, also free agent. Offensive tackle Jesse Davis is a free agent. Defensive tackles Chris Wormley and Tyson Alualu are both free agents. Edge rusher Malik Reed. Linebacker Miles Jack is a free agent. Linebackers Devin Bush and Robert Spillane. Corner William Jackson III and Akella Witherspoon, Arthur Millette, all free agents. They also lost corner Cam Sutton. Safety Terrell Edmonds and safety Carl Joseph is a free agent. So again, I think they did a nice job of filling all those guys that are still free agents or the guys that they did lose. Bunch of corners gone. They got a couple in the draft and re-signed some other guys. So I think their corner room is decent. It's 5 deep right now. I wouldn't go much deep, 6 deep. And if you include Luke Barku, even 7 deep there. No offense to Madre Harper. He's the only guy that I didn't really talk about there in the corner spot. But the linebackers, again, they needed to redo that room, and they did that in free agency. And the running backs, I think it's fine. They had enough guys already, and they signed Jason Huntley to be their 4th guy. Let's go to the records here. So I have the Steelers surprising, probably some people, maybe not some others. 11-6 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe it's me being a homer, but they have an easy schedule. There's no qualms about it. They, luckily for them, the 2 divisions they play are the NFC West and the AFC South. And their other 3 cross games are against the Packers, Patriots, and Raiders. So winnable, this schedule is definitely. So week 1, I went back and forth on this one. I took the loss for Pittsburgh. at home against the 49ers. I think they can win that one, though. It just depends on if Brock Purdy is available. But then I also thought, well, the pass rush is going to be tough to face against Nick Bosa and Javon Hargrave. So that's kind of the reasoning why I gave Pittsburgh the loss in that one. Maybe the offensive line continuity isn't necessarily there yet in week one. So it's going to be a close game, I think, anyways. But I have them losing that one. Then they go on a win streak, 5 in a row. They win at home against the Browns, Monday Night Football. They win at the Raiders, Sunday Night Football. They win at the Texans. They win at home against the Ravens. Bye week 6, early one. They win at the Rams, week 7. Week 8, they lose at home against the Jags. They win at home against the Titans on Thursday Night Football. They lose at home against the Packers. Again, another one that I could see being flipped. I think they can beat the Packers. They win at the Browns, sweeping them. They lose at the Bengals. They win at home against the Cardinals. They win at home against the Patriots Thursday Night Football. They win at the Colts. They win at home against the Bengals on Saturday, week 16. And then they finish up with 2 losses at the Seahawks, at the Ravens. 11-6 Pittsburgh Steelers. You are back in the playoffs this season. And another non-sub 500 year for Mike Tomlin's crew. I just believe in Kenny Pickett. That's the biggest thing. And I think the defensive additions that they got will work out fine. Not a championship roster just yet, but definitely a playoff-worthy roster, especially on offense. A lot of youth there mixed with some veterans. I think they finally got the offensive line fixed, and I think they can get it done this year and finish second in the AFC North, get to the playoffs. Let's go fantasy here. Quarterback Kenny Pickett. Love Kenny Pickett. Unfortunately for fantasy-wise, he's going to be a QB2 to start, I think. Right now, in my mind, he's a QB2. I definitely think he can be a QB1, though. High-end QB2 with exponential, I think. QB1 upside. This offense has all the pieces it needs. It just needs that point guard to distribute the ball. And I think he's the guy. So draft him as a high caliber backup quarterback with starting ability. Running back Najee Harris, I think he's an RB1, especially with the amount of touches he gets in this offense. The injuries crept up last year, unfortunately, but I do think he is going to be able to have enough touches to be an RB1 this year. He's probably going to go somewhere in the late first, early second round of most drafts. Wide receivers, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson. I'll start with Pickens first. George Pickens is my guy in this Steelers offense. He's going to elevate to the wide receiver 1 position this year, I believe. And that Pickett to Pickens connection is fantastic. The alliteration is also great. So make sure you draft George Pickens this year because he's going to go off in year 2. Deontay Johnson, great wide receiver 2 option. I think he's a PPR stud, or at least he was last year. So, yeah, I like him as a solid wide receiver 2. Allen Robinson, not sure if there's enough targets to go around in this offense because of the fact that Najee Harris catches and runs. But I think Allen Robinson is a week-to-week flex option. And then if one of the 2 top guys gets injured, possibly a wide receiver 3 play. Tight end Pat Freiermuth, he's a tight end 1 all day. I love me some Pat Freiermuth, especially since he was a former Penn Stater. And he showed that he's going to be a beast and easily in a shallow position group. Tight end 1 all day for Pat Freiermuth. Kicker Chris Boswell, I think he's a starting caliber kicker. He's a lower end one. He's in that 9 to 12 range. But nonetheless, I think you can still start him on most weeks, and he'll do a good job for you. Knows how to kick in Pittsburgh, so he has that experience. And the biggest thing, he can kick from 50 plus in Pittsburgh, which is one of the hardest things to do. So I think Boswell definitely can be a starting kicker, and this offense should provide enough opportunities for him to get enough points in that top 10 kicker spot. Steelers defense, I like them. They're not the Steelers of the past. They're not going to be a top 5 defense. I think they're still good enough to be a starting defense, though. With TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith had a career year, 14 and a half sacks last year. That duo alone puts this defense in starting caliber territory. And the rest of their players, I think, are just fine. The back end is going to be possibly an issue, but with the experience of Peterson, and they still have Minkah Fitzpatrick roaming around back there. They got a lot of great young pieces in Joey Porter Jr., who I love, and Corey Trice in the draft. Levi Wallace returns for another year in Pittsburgh as well. I think the secondary is going to be just fine, and this defense will be a starting caliber one. Draft them as your starting defense. And the special teams also, Gunnar Olszewski is decent, not the best kick returner or punt returner in the league, but punt returner, he's definitely a good one. And they block some kicks. They did last year. They blocked one. Rookies, there is just one to talk about on this Steelers offense because there weren't many guys drafted, for one, at the skill positions, but also there weren't many open spots available. Darnell Washington, though, not sure where to value him. Because of Pat Freiermuth, it'll be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does. If they go to more 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, then Darnell becomes a lot more valuable. He was drafted in the 4th round of our rookie draft, 39th overall. So, yeah, in Dynasty, I think he's a draft and hold kind of player. No value in redraft, I don't think, anyways, right now. The only way we would have redraft value this year would be an injury. So, or if they started to run 12 personnel as their base, which would be kind of crazy in today's NFL. Okay, let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens re-signings. Quarterbacks Lamar Jackson and Tyler Huntley. Running backs Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. Defensive tackles Michael Pierce and Brent Urban. Linebacker Roquan Smith. Corners Trayvon Mullen and Daryl Worley. Not much going in free agency. They had to save money for Lamar. So, but what they did here, quarterback Josh Johnson, wide receivers Nelson Aguilar and Laquan Treadwell, defensive tackle Angelo Blackson, and corner Rock Yassin. Obviously, the Lamar deal was the biggest signing of the offseason for Baltimore. But to get Roquan back as well, I thought was fantastic for them. And their biggest free agent in terms of money-wise was Nelson Aguilar. So not a lot going, not a lot of change. I don't think in terms of this Ravens team this year. Not sure if they really got better. Not sure if they really got a lot worse either. I think they got worse, though, overall, especially with what their schedule holds, which I'll get to. Losses-wise, running back Kenyon Drake is a free agent, as is wide receiver Sammy Watkins. They lost wide receiver Demarcus Robinson, tight end Josh Oliver, offensive tackle Jawan James is a free agent, guard Ben Powers, defensive tackle Calais Campbell, edge rushers Justin Houston and Jason Pierre-Paul are both free agents. I know I read an ESPN article that said the final move the Ravens need to make this offseason is to re-sign Justin Houston. I echo that sentiment. Corner Marcus Peters is a free agent, as is corner Kyle Fuller. And, of course, I mentioned earlier in the Jets injury news, they traded safety Chuck Clark, now out for the season with a torn ACL for the Jets. But I think they're going to miss some of those secondary players. They do have Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton at safety. They re-signed Geno Stone. The depth at corner scares me, though. Marlon Humphrey, they signed Rock Yassin. But after that, it's a lot of younger guys that are unproven. They did get Q Blue Kelly in the 5th round this year. Q, you're my boy Blue Kelly there. So hopefully he takes a jump in his rookie year. But other than that, I mean, the corner depth scares me. I don't think a lot of the other losses were paramount. Loss of Calais Campbell on the defensive line. A lot of veteran leadership gone there with Houston, Pierre-Paul, and Campbell all gone. And then the only other thing, the line, Jawan James at right tackle and Ben Powers inside. Now they have Ben Cleveland to fill that spot, which is fine. Morgan Moses at right tackle is your guy anyways. So I don't think the losses really were a big issue other than the secondary. I think the corner depth thing is really scary for Baltimore right now. But let's talk about their schedule. I have the Ravens going 7-10. Okay, 2-4 in the division. That puts them 3rd place. Week 1, they win at home against the Texans. Week 2, they lose at the Bengals. They win at home against the Colts. They lose at the Browns. They lose at the Steelers. They win at the Titans in London. Week 6, week 7, they lose at home against the Lions. That's one that I could see them winning. They win at the Cardinals. They lose at home against the Seahawks. They win at home against the Browns. They lose at home against the Bengals. Thursday night football. They lose at the Chargers. Sunday night football. That was another one that I kind of was iffy about. So there possibly you have a 9-8 record instead with 2 flippers. Bye week 13, late one. They win at home against the Rams. They lose at the Jags. Sunday night football, week 15. They lose at the 49ers Monday night football on Christmas night. They lose at home against the Dolphins, and they win at home against the Steelers week 18. Not enough, though. Again, though, 2 flipped games possibly puts them at 9-8. I don't know if 9-8 is good enough to get you in the playoffs in a loaded AFC, though. That's the biggest key. I think you must have 10 or more games to get into the AFC playoffs this year. Fantasy-wise, quarterback Lamar Jackson. I'm still not a Lamar guy. I'm not going to draft him. I'm just not going to do it. It's not worth it. He's been injured the last 2 years. And who the hell knows if the wide receivers are going to work out. So, no, I'm not doing it. I'm just not. He's a QB1 when he's on the field. But again, hasn't been on the field last 2 years for some games. So I'm not trusting that he will be on the field for all 17 this year. And even the offset of his talent on the field, not enough for me to take him in fantasy, trust him for an entire season. But he's QB1, though. Running backs, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards. I got to trust J.K. I have to. He's on my dynasty team, for one. Redraft, I'm probably not going to take him. It's the same thing as Lamar. I can't trust him. He's been injured the last however many years. So I love JK. I love his potential. But in redraft, I'm probably not going to look at him because of the injury scares. And it's just not worth it in my book. Realistically, though, he's an RB2 with definite RB1 upside in this offense. They like to run the ball, a lot of RPOs and read option stuff. So that's why I think JK could be an RB1, but a solid RB2 nonetheless when he's on the field. Gus Edwards, perfect handcuff for J.K. Dobbins. You have to. You absolutely must draft Gus Edwards if you draft J.K. Dobbins. It's just too risky if you don't. So I think Gus Edwards doesn't have a lot of standalone value currently with J.K. there, but Baltimore has a history of using him at the goal line as well, so he could vulture touchdowns and possibly be a flex streaming option if you need to. Wide receivers, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr. Rashad Bateman, I think, is a mid wide receiver 2 currently. Again, I just don't trust Lamar in his passing ability, so that's why I have Bateman as a wide receiver 2. Has the skills of wide receiver 1, just has not really shown it. He's had separation issues in coverage his first couple of seasons. So that's why I'm giving him a wide receiver 2 grade. Odell Beckham Jr. also should be a wide receiver 2, but in this offense, he's a wide receiver 3. And it's just we don't know how much Odell has left. That's the thing that sticks with me with him is yes, he had a pretty solid season with the Rams in their Super Bowl year. Didn't play all of last year with the ACL, so who knows what he's going to look like and how much he can produce on the field anyways. He's not a wide receiver 1 anymore like he used to be in terms of on the field wide receiver 1, not fantasy purposes. So he's got to play a role in this offense, and a role player in a run-heavy offense, I just don't see it giving him enough targets to produce excellent wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 numbers. So that's why I'm putting Odell as a wide receiver 3 right now. Tight end Mark Andrews, easily tight end 1. He is the one guy in this offense that you know is going to be consistent, regardless of whether Lamar is on the field or not. He had great numbers with Tyler Huntley last year, and Anthony Brown whenever he played. So I don't think it's a big issue. I think Mark Andrews is top 3 tight end in the league. Kicker Justin Tucker, same thing can be said for Tuck. Number 1 kicker in my book every year, pretty much. Has not lost a step, even getting into his 30s now. So, yeah, not much to say about Tucker. Ravens defense. I'm not trusting them to be a starting caliber defense. The front is pretty solid. The issue is the pass rush and the back end. The pass rush, I mentioned Justin Houston had 9.5 sacks last year, I think, for Baltimore. Jason Pierre-Paul had a couple as well. They lose those 2 guys, or they just haven't re-signed them yet. And what they're left with now are unproven guys. Tyus Bowser has never been a starter in his career. He's going to have to be now. Odafe Owe going into his 3rd season now, I think. Or is it 2nd? I get years taken from me every once in a while. 3rd year. No, I was right. I was right initially. He's got to prove something because – 8 sacks in 2 seasons is not going to cut it from a former first-round pick, okay? And while he has played 32 games, that's just not good enough. So he's got to prove that he was worth that first-round pick in 2021 in a contract year. And the other guys, they They got Tavius Robinson, who they drafted this year in the 4th round. They have David Ojabo, who they drafted last year and was injured, though. They drafted him injured. And then there's not a lot of other guys. So there's a lot of unproven guys at outside linebacker. So I'm not sure about the pass rush, and I already kind of mentioned my issues with the corner depth there. So I don't like this Ravens defense to be high caliber this year, even with Mike McDonald back as DC. Maybe. Did he go to Michigan? I can't remember. One rookie to talk about, wide receiver Zay Flowers, 1st-round pick this year. Definitely dynasty-wise, take him. He's going to go in the 1st round probably. I believe that's where he went in ours. Yes, Zay Flowers went 3rd overall. That was kind of crazy that he went before Quentin Johnston, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Jordan Addison. I do not value him even close to that level. He's not going to produce as much as the other guys, not in this offense. So, but definitely worth the pick in dynasty-wise. Redraft. Someone's probably going to draft him. It's not going to be me, though. I just don't see enough targets in this offense to warrant drafting a rookie with Bateman and Beckham there. I just don't think he's going to make enough of an impact to be a starting caliber weekly player for your fantasy team. Moving on to the Cincinnati Bengals here. What did they do in the offseason? Well, they re-signed running back Travion Williams, wide receiver Trent Taylor, tight end Drew Sample, guard Max Sharping, linebacker Jermaine Pratt, and long snapper Cal Idamitis. Free agency, they signed quarterback Trevor Siemian, tight end Irv Smith Jr., offensive tackle Orlando Brown Jr., guard Cody Ford, edge rusher Terrell Basham, corner Sidney Jones, and safety Nick Scott. Really liked what they did in free agency. They got some good deals. Irv Smith is going to be their starter after a couple years of Hayden Hurst. They should be able to recuperate his career as a former 2nd-round pick of the Vikings in 2019, just like they refreshed the career of the former 1st-round pick, Hayden Hurst there. The Orlando Brown signing was fantastic. They needed that, and they got a good one in Brown. Don't know why Cody Ford isn't a starter. He has been excellent throughout his career, so I could see him, positioning himself possibly in that lineup. And then the other one I liked, Nick Scott, I thought was fantastic signing. He's going to slide right in next to Dax Hill, their former 1st-rounder from 2022, and start at strong safety there. So, yeah, I liked a bunch of what the Bengals did. They were trying to save money, though, for Joey B coming up here sometime soon. Hopefully we get that contract laid down. Losses in free agency, quarterback Brandon Allen, tight end Hayden Hurst, corner Eli Apple is a free agent, corner Trey Flowers, safeties Jesse Bates III and Von Bell, and long snapper Clark Harris is a free agent. Bunch of names there. The safeties are the biggest ones. Jesse Bates, Von Bell, big losses in the secondary. But, I think it's okay. They re-signed Michael Thomas. They signed Nick Scott. Like I said, they have Dax Hill, who they drafted last year. They have Jordan Battle, who they drafted this year. And I think they're going to be okay at safety. Tyson Anderson, they drafted last year as well. The corners, I don't think that's as big of an issue. Chidobe Awuzie, Cam Taylor-Britt, DJ Turner, they drafted this year. Mike Hilton, they signed Sidney Jones. I think they're going to be okay there. And I mentioned Hayden Hurst replaced right away with Irv Smith. So I think that's pretty good. Brandon Allen probably a bigger loss than maybe people think. Trevor Siemian, I think, downgrades the backup quarterback spot from Brandon Allen. Bengals win the division here, 13-4 for Cincinnati. I mentioned the easy schedule, playing the AFC South and the NFC West. People may think that that's a slight on the NFC West, but when you look at it, the Rams and the Cardinals are not very good teams. It's the Seahawks and the 49ers, and the 49ers have an injured quarterback. So the Seahawks, I think, are the best team in the NFC West, but we'll see. AFC South, I don't really like much of anyone except Jacksonville. So starting off, Bengals start 6-0 at the Browns, at home against the Ravens, at home against the Rams, Monday Night Football, at the Titans, at the Cardinals, at home against the Seahawks. By week 7, they come out of that with 2 tough games, 2 tough losses. At the 49ers, that's all about the offensive-defensive line matchup. 49ers win that one. And then they lose at home against the Bills, Sunday Night Football. Big matchup in the AFC power sphere. I just think Buffalo is a better team, and they have a better pass rush. At home against the Texans, they win that one. At the Ravens, Thursday Night Football, they win that. They win at home against the Steelers. They win at the Jags, Monday Night Football. They win at home against the Colts. They win at home against the Vikings. They lose at the Steelers on Saturday, week 16. They lose at the Chiefs again. Major loss, knocks them down to the 3rd seed probably. And then they win at home against Cleveland week 18. In possibly a seeding game. You never know. 13-4, 5-1 in the division, though, for Cincinnati. Really like this team again. I think they made some good moves this offseason. Fantasy-wise, quarterback Joe Burrow, stud. QB1 all the way. I'm probably not going to be able to draft him because people are going to overdraft him like they usually do the top quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, Lamar, and some of the other guys. But, yeah, Joe Burrow is definitely a QB1. This passing offense isn't going to lose its step. Running back Joe Mixon, this one's interesting. Now we'll talk about his backup, the rookie, in a second. But Joe Mixon, not sure if he's even going to be a Bengal. If he is, though, I think he's an RB2. He's lost a step a little bit the last year or so, but still can produce 1,000 yards and a good amount of touchdowns. So I think he's a low-end RB1. RB2 solid, though. That's definitely his floor. Don't think he goes much below RB2 status. Wide receivers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. Chase, just like Burrow, is a quintessential, unicorn there. He's going to be right up there with Justin Jefferson of Minnesota in the yards leader near the end of the season. And he's a wide receiver 1 all day, going to go in the 1st round probably. T. Higgins, this is an interesting season for T. It's a contract year for him. And so he's going to want to show out. I think he's a wide receiver 2 with possibly even wide receiver 1 upside, depending on how much they throw in this offense in 2023. Definitely, though, wide receiver 2, he's going to get enough targets to warrant that ranking. Tyler Boyd, I think, has lost a little bit of his gleam last year. He kind of took a back seat to Higgins and Chase. So I don't really like Tyler Boyd this year as much as I used to in previous seasons. I think he still has some value, though, as a flex play, possibly week-to-week matchup-wise. And I wouldn't go much more than that. Wide receiver 3 at the very best, unless Chase is hurt again, which would elevate him to wide receiver 2 status. Tight end Irv Smith. I think he's a sleeper, just like I thought Hayden Hurst was a sleeper last year. Irv Smith in this offense should have a big opportunity to contribute and produce a good amount of numbers. So I think he's a low end tight end one because of the offense that he plays in and the historical success of tight ends in this offense. Kicker Evan McPherson, starter all day. He has been a beast since he came into the league. Was a killer as a rookie, is a killer now, and he has a booming leg, can make all the kicks. McPherson, get him on your team. Bengals defense. They are a gray defense, I will say, because they have a lot of pieces. It's just, can they put it together? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they can. I will give the Bengals a starting caliber grade. Look, when you look at their pass rush, Sam Hubbard, Trey Hendrickson, they drafted Miles Murphy, Joseph Osai, and they got DJ Reader, BJ Hill inside as well. Love the linebackers, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, who they re-signed, Akeem Davis-Gaither, and they got Marcus Bailey as well. And then the secondary I already talked about. I think it's perfectly fine. So, and the special teams, Trent Taylor as a punt returner, Charlie Jones, kick returner. I think that's good. I think they're not going to be the best. They're not going to be the best of the best, not a top 5 defense. But I do think they're capable of being a starting defense this year, especially with what their schedule holds. Rookie-wise, running back Chase Brown. I love Chase Brown, especially in fantasy and even more so in Dynasty. That's why I drafted him. I got him on my team in the 3rd round, 28th overall. He is going to contribute as the backup currently, but I drafted him because he's going to be the starter. And I was banking on the rumors that what happened with Dalvin Cook in Minnesota is going to happen to Joe Mixon in Cincinnati. Hasn't happened yet, so it's kind of scaring me. It's okay. I do have some other guys on my roster, but that's just me. I think Chase Brown's going to be the starter 2024 and beyond, and he's going to be a beast. So I'll talk more about him next year probably. But there's 2 other guys here, wide receivers, Charlie Jones, Andre Iosivas. I don't think either of these guys got drafted in our rookie draft. No, neither of them got drafted in our Dynasty League. But when you talk about Charlie Jones, he is a slot fiend, and I think that's where you're going to see him 2024 and beyond. I don't think Tyler Boyd's going to come back next year. T. Higgins might not either, depending on how much money they have with the Burrow contract. That's why they drafted Charlie Jones in the 4th round, so he can contribute a little bit this year and then step into a full-time role next year. Love Charlie Jones, though. I think you should get him on your Dynasty team if you need a player that's going to be a solid guy and a high-powered offense for years to come. That's going to be your guy there. And then Andre Iosivas, I don't see much value in him in Dynasty currently. He was a sort of a project 6th-round pick out of Princeton. Good size, but needs to work on his route running, a little bit tight in the hips as well. So had a great Senior Bowl, but has some developing to do. Probably going to be on the practice squad unless they make some interesting decisions, which I don't think they will. They re-signed Trent Taylor for a reason. He's going to be wide receiver 5 or 6. So, yeah. Charlie Jones, though, get him on your Dynasty team to stash him for next season. Lastly, the Cleveland Browns, no 1st round or 2nd round pick this year. So their first pick was Cedric Tillman, which I'll talk about in fantasy segment. But re-signings, wide receiver Jakeem Grant, tight end Harrison Bryant, center Ethan Pochik, defensive tackle Jordan Elliott, linebackers Anthony Walker Jr. and Sione Takitaki, and corner AJ Green. Free agency, quarterback Josh Dobbs. They traded for wide receiver Elijah Moore, signed wide receiver Marquise Goodwin, tight end Jordan Akins, defensive tackle Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive tackles Tristan Hill and Maurice Hurst. Traded for edge rusher Zadarius Smith, signed edge rusher Ogbania Okoronkwo, and safeties Rodney McLeod and Juan Thornhill. The re-signings, I thought getting Takitaki and Walker back at linebacker was key. Also, Pochik at center was a great signing. He's going to get some competition from sixth-round pick Luke Whippler out of Ohio State there. And other than that, the free agency, I thought, was very good for them. The two trades, getting Moore and Smith, Moore's going to fill a starting spot right away, as is Zadarius Smith on that opposite side of Myles Garrett. What they've been looking for a couple years now is that opposite pass rush side that can take advantage of one-on-one matchups as they double-team Myles Garrett. Hopefully, Zadarius Smith can be that guy. And then the safeties, Dalvin Tomlinson also, the defensive tackle, that was a big signing, as was the safeties, Thornhill and McLeod. McLeod, a reserve guy, going to be the third safety, but Thornhill, I thought, is a guy might have been an afterthought by some other teams and some fans, but a good signing nonetheless for Cleveland there. Losses, quarterback Jacoby Brissett, running back Kareem Hunt is a free agent, running back Dearness Johnson, tight end Jesse James, offensive tackle Chris Hubbard is a free agent, as is guard Joe Haig, defensive tackle Taven Bryan, edge rusher Davian Clowney is a free agent, edge rusher Chase Winovich, linebackers Deion Jones and Reggie Ragland, both free agents, corner Greedy Williams, and safeties John Johnson and Ronnie Harrison are both free agents. They might miss Clowney, not sure. I don't know why they didn't re-sign Kareem Hunt. I thought the two-back system worked well for them. Maybe they just want to give Nick Chubb more opportunity, or they just wanted to go younger and cheaper at the running back spot behind Chubb there. I think their biggest loss is going to be Jacoby Brissett. I think they're going to miss him guiding Deshaun Watson. Josh Dobbs, while a veteran, does not have the same skill that Jacoby Brissett does if he's needed in a game. So I think they need Deshaun to play all 17 games because they're going to be sorely missing talent at the quarterback spot if Watson has to miss a game for whatever reason. I have the Browns finishing last once again in the division, tied with the Ravens at 7-10, but fourth nonetheless with a 1-5 divisional record. It's going to be a tough season in Cleveland, even as Deshaun entered his second year there. They start 0-2. They lose at home against the Bengals, at the Steelers on Monday Night Football. So there you're already 0-2 in the division. So that's a tough start to the year. But they win two, then they win at home against the Titans. They win at home against the Ravens. Bye week, 2-2, really early, week 5. They lose at home against the 49ers. They win at the Colts. They lose at the Seahawks. They win at home against the Cardinals. They lose at the Ravens. They lose at home against the Steelers. They lose at the Broncos, who I think are going to be better than people think, or at least better than they were last year. Win at the Rams. They lose at home against the Jags. They win at home against the Bears. They win at the Texans. They lose at home against the Jets. Thursday Night Football, Week 17. Might get flexed out on that one. And they lose at the Bengals, Week 18. So it's a very up and down season in Cleveland based off the games that they have and when they have them. 7-10, though, nonetheless. is going to be a tough thing to swallow for Cleveland fans, and looking at Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Speaking of Deshaun Watson, talk about his fantasy prospects this year. I like him as a backup quarterback, QB2 for me. Just can't trust him with what we saw last year in his first season. It's just we don't know. We don't know how this offense is going to improve with no more Kareem Hunt. You're going to have Nick Chubb more in the passing game coming out of the backfield. You also have newcomer and Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, Marquise Goodwin. And it's yet known whether the chemistry is there with the receivers. So backup QB2 for Deshaun Watson. Running back Nick Chubb, he's RB1 still. I think even more so now with Kareem Hunt not re-signed currently. Definitely a first-round pick. I think probably 6th, maybe 7th overall selection. Somewhere around there is where you're going to take Nick Chubb. And this Cleveland running game should continue to run through him. And like I said, he should maybe have some PPR value even now with Hunt gone. Wide receivers, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones. It has to be Coop. It has to be Amari Cooper for Cleveland. They traded for him last year to be their number one wide receiver. Didn't produce enough to show that he was the guy. Hence the trade for Elijah Moore. They needed help for Cooper to kind of have more players get him open, I guess. So Coop, I think, is a wide receiver 2. I don't think, as it stands right now, that any wide receiver in this offense is going to be a wide receiver 1 fantasy-wise. So wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 2, though, for Cooper. Elijah Moore, newcomer. He's going to play in the slot, and we'll see. I mean, the Jets didn't draft him in the second round for just, whatever. But he's got to prove it. He's got to prove he's worth the trade that they did, because they traded a third-round pick for him. So I think he's going to be expected to come in and be the number 2 wide receiver, and he's going to need to produce a lot. So maybe he's more comparable to a Brandon Cooks like Deshaun had in Houston. Who knows? I think Elijah Moore is a wide receiver 3 currently, though, with wide receiver 2 upside. Donovan Peoples-Jones, hate this for DPJ because I loved him as a breakout candidate last year. But with the trading for Elijah Moore, lessens his workload. I think he's a streaming flex option, nothing more, until we see Elijah Moore not work out and then DPJ need to take more targets on. Tight end David Njoku, he's a guy I've never really been that high on. I regarded him as a first-round bust, but then Cleveland re-signed him to an outrageous deal. So I don't know. He put up some good numbers last year, actually. 58 receptions, 628 yards, 4 touchdowns. Still not crazy, not the greatest. That was his second best year of his career, though. And tied his touchdowns for the best in his career. He's had four times. So he's a mid. He's a mid tight end. Backup is where I'm putting him. Tight end 2 territory. I don't really see the potential to be a tight end 1, so I'm going tight end 2 for David Njoku. Kicker Cade York had a great rookie year last year. I just don't trust him to be my starting kicker currently, just because I don't know if this offense is going to produce enough opportunities for him to kick field goals and extra points. So that's why I'm not putting Cade York in a starting caliber territory, even though I do really like the player himself, and he has a massive leg. Browns defense, I'm not comfortable with them right now. Major questions at the pass rush position, opposite of Myles Garrett. Does Zadarius Smith have enough left in the tank to help that? I like the linebackers, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Anthony Walker, Sianu Takitaki. But the secondary is also pretty good. But again, the Browns defense on paper has been good the last 2 years, but they haven't been able to put it together. It's because the pass rush can't get there, and the corners have to cover for a long time, leading to open receivers. That's just that's the biggest issue. So I'm not comfortable right now. They are. It's not like they're far off though. I think they're in that mid-range tier where they're somewhere like 12 to 16. So I do think they're right on the cusp of being a starting caliber defense in fantasy, and the special teams helps a lot. They re-signed Jakeem Grant. He should help them on punts, and they have Jerome Ford as their kick returner right now. So I do like that duo, but not starting caliber for me. Rookies. Now, I mentioned the quarterback depth. They drafted a guy this year, and I really like him coming out of UCLA. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 5th-round pick from the UCLA Bruins. Obviously, no value currently. No, absolutely none. Redraft nor dynasty. But I mentioned, though, he's a guy to look at. If this season goes how I have it, 7-10, and Deshaun doesn't play his best for all 17 games, he's a possible stash candidate for 2024. Not that the Browns can get out of that contract, but I'm just saying. All right, the guy that does have some value, though, right now, wide receiver Cedric Tillman, 3rd-round pick, their first pick this year out of Tennessee. I like him. Unfortunately, he's not going to get enough reps this year, I don't think anyways. Maybe he steals from DPJ as wide receiver 3, or Elijah Moore doesn't take the opportunity that is presented to him, and maybe that opens up a starting spot for Tillman. He's going to have a reserve role. Draftable in Dynasty, though. He went in the 4th round, 35th overall in our Dynasty League. So undrafted in most Dynasty spots. But I do like him. I think he's got an option as a future wideout, starting caliber wide receiver in this offense, depending on the quarterback situation and whatnot. So that is the AFC North. To recap, I have the Bengals winning the AFC North once again, 13-4, 5-1 in the division. Steelers making the playoffs, finishing second, 11-6, 4-2 in division. Ravens, 3rd place, 7-10, 2-4. And then the Browns last, also 7-10, 1-5 in divisional play. And that is the show for today, y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. FAA_bets on Twitter as well. FAApodcast.com is our website. You can check us out here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, etc. We'll be back next Friday talking USFL championship game, see which teams made it, and what we think of the championship game. And we'll also have all your NCAA and NFL news. And we will begin our college conference season previews as we make our way into July, and then get into some more fantasy stuff as we reach the season and get our season predictions, overall season predictions, including Super Bowls and whatnot, award winners. But we'll finish up our season preview series on Tuesday with our AFC East season preview. Maybe get some Jets fans on here to talk about Aaron Rodgers and whatnot. Thank y'all for watching again, and we'll see you back on Tuesday.